Hello students, welcome to AriserTalent. As you know, we are studying the chapter The Fundamental Unit of Life. In our previous lecture, we have already studied about the structure of plasma membrane, in which I told you that plasma membrane is made up of lipids and proteins. Okay, now we will talk about the transport methods of plasma membrane. So here we go. As we all know that plasma membrane is selectively permeable membrane. Plasma membrane is a selectively permeable membrane. Why it is selectively permeable membrane? Because it allows the movement in and out of selected materials only. So we can say that plasma membrane is selectively permeable membrane as it allows selected molecules to move in or out of the cell. Okay, this is the reason it maintains the environment inside the cell, because it allows only selected molecules, selected particles to in or out from the cell. Okay, this is the reason plasma membrane is known as selectively permeable. Now, as it is selectively permeable, so movement of particles from the plasma membrane takes place in the different manner. Okay, so now our next topic of discussion is transport of materials. Generally, transport of materials in plasma membrane takes place by the two methods. This is diffusion. It is done by the two methods, that is passive transport. Passive transport and active transport. Okay, so thus we can say that transport of material in plasma membrane is done by two methods. This is passive transport and active transport. What is passive transport? The transport of material takes place without energy, that is passive transport, and it is generally done by two methods again: diffusion and osmosis. Okay, and if we talk about the active transport, then transport of materials required energy. That method is known as active transport. It is done by two methods: endocytosis and exocytosis. Okay, so first of all, we will discuss about the passive transport of materials. Clear? This is the type, these are the types of transport: passive transport, active transport. Passive transport which does not require any energy, and active transport which require energy to proceed. And it is of two types. Passive transport is of two types, diffusion and osmosis, and active transport is of two types, endocytosis and exocytosis. Now we will study about them in detail. First of all, we will talk about the passive transport. What is passive transport? Passive transport means transport of material which does not require any energy. Transport of material in which they do not require energy. Okay, it is of two types: diffusion and osmosis. Okay. Now first of all we will talk about diffusion. What is diffusion? Diffusion means the movement of molecules or the movement of substance from one region to another, or we can say when the substance spread uniformly into the other substance, okay, from their region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. That method is known as diffusion. Okay. So, here we go with the topic. First of all, we will talk about diffusion. What is diffusion? The process in which substance spread, or we can say the process in which molecules of the substance spread. We can mention molecules of the substance, the process in which molecules of the substance spread uniformly into other substance the process in which molecules of the substance spread uniformly into other substance from the region of its higher concentration to the region of its lower concentration. Okay. So, this is all about the diffusion. How it happens, we can see here. Suppose this is the water. It's a beaker in which water molecules are present. Okay. If you will add a drop of ink, these are water molecules. Okay. So, if we will add a drop of ink, then what will happen? As you will drop down the ink, so it will spread uniformly in the water. Okay, it's ink and these are water molecules. Clear? So, what is diffusion? The process in which molecules of the substance spread uniformly. Here we can see once we put the drop of ink, it is spreaded uniformly in the water. Okay, so thus we can say the process in which molecules of the substance spread uniformly into the other substance. What is the other substance here? From the region of its higher concentration to the region of its lower concentration. Okay, so this is all about the diffusion. What we have done for the example, we have put ink drop in the water molecules. Okay, then what happens, as it is clear to you that it spreads uniformly. Here we have put the drop of ink. Then we can see in the picture that drop of ink, when we put it in the water, then molecules of ink spread uniformly in the water. Okay, from why it is so? Because they move from its higher region region of higher concentration region to the region of lower concentration. Here we have added ink, so higher concentration of ink is outside more than the concentration here. Then once we put the drop of ink here, then it is spread uniformly from higher region to lower concentration. Okay, region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration. So, this is all about the diffusion. Now, we will talk about the significance of diffusion. What are the examples of diffusion? Then transport of food in phloem also takes place by the diffusion only. Loss of water from the plants in the form of transpiration also takes place by the diffusion only. So next is significance of diffusion. What is the significance of diffusion? That transport of food in phloem takes place by diffusion. Okay. Then exchange of gases of respiratory gases. What are they? Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, so we can say exchange of respiratory gases takes place by the diffusion. Another example is loss of water from plants in the form of water vapor, and that process is known as transpiration. That method is known as transpiration. So this also takes place by the process of diffusion only. Beside it, aroma of flowers spread through the diffusion. Aroma of flowers spread through diffusion. Okay, even the air freshener, perfume which we use, all these processes happens by the diffusion only. Clear? So these are the significances of diffusion, that transport of food materials in phloem takes place by the diffusion. Exchange of respiratory gases means oxygen and carbon dioxide also take place by the diffusion. How it happens? When we breathe oxygen in, what happens? Oxygen is available outside in a great amount, but when there is a lower concentration of oxygen inside our body, we breathe in, thus we can say that oxygen moves inside the body from higher concentration to the lower concentration. Same happens with the carbon dioxide. We breathe out carbon dioxide. Why? Because when the concentration of carbon dioxide is greater outside the body cell, then we have collected, once the collection of carbon dioxide is there inside the body cell, then it moves outside from the lower concentration, because once it has collected inside the body cell, then it has the higher concentration, then carbon dioxide moves from a body cell to outer environment. Thus we can say that exchange of respiratory gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place due to the diffusion. Okay. Loss of water from plants in the form of water vapor, that process is known as transpiration. It's also take place by the diffusion. Aroma of flowers spread through diffusion. So these are the significances of diffusion. Now next method we will talk about the osmosis. What is osmosis? Osmosis, same, the water molecules or the molecules of solvent move from their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration by the semi-permeable membrane. There is a difference between diffusion and osmosis, that in diffusion we do not require any semi-permeable membrane, but for the osmosis semi-permeable membrane is required. Okay, so this is the difference. Here we go with the next process, that is osmosis. What is osmosis? The process in which molecules of substance or we can say molecules of water. The process in which molecules of a substance or water move from its higher concentration to the region of lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. Okay, that is known as osmosis. So we can say the process in which molecules of a substance or water move from its higher concentration to the region of lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. This point to be noted, that they move through the semi-permeable membrane, and this is the difference between the process of diffusion and osmosis. This process is known as osmosis. Okay, generally it takes place by two methods: endo osmosis and exosmosis. Now, what is osmosis? Endo means inside the cell and exo means outside the cell. So, here we go. Yes, here we go with the methods: endo osmosis and exosmosis. Endo osmosis. What is endo osmosis? The movement of water in the cell, endo means inside the cell, through the semi-permeable membrane when they are kept in the hypotonic solution. The movement of water inside the cell through semi-permeable membrane when it is kept when cell is kept in hypotonic solution. Okay, when we place a cell in the hypotonic solution, then endo-osmosis is done. Why? Because the movement of water molecules becomes inside the cell. So, we can say the movement of water inside the cell through semi-permeable membrane when the cell is kept in the hypotonic solution. Next is exosmosis. Exosmosis. What is exosmosis? Exosmosis means the exit of water molecules, the exit of water molecules when it is placed, when the cell is placed in hypertonic solution. Okay, when you keep the cell in the hypertonic solution, then the movement of water will be outside the cell through the semi-permeable membrane. Okay, so what are the hypotonic solution and hypertonic solution? If we talk about the hypotonic solution, then the solution in which the concentration of solute is more than the concentration of water. Okay, and here the concentration of solute is less than the water. Okay. Now, for example, let me clear you how the osmosis take place. Look, for example, we will take a beaker, okay, then a funnel. We will place a funnel. Inside it, and will fill it with the water solution, and here we will put semi-permeable membrane. It may be fish bladder or egg membrane. Okay, so this is a beaker. It is filled with water. Here we have filled water. This is a funnel in which we have filled sugar solution. Here we have filled sugar solution, and we have marked a sign A here. This is a sign A. Till this sign, sugar solution is filled here. It is a sugar solution. Okay, this is sugar solution. Now what happens? We have placed a semi-permeable membrane here, which is made up of egg membrane, semi-permeable membrane, and it's a funnel filled with sugar molecules, sugar solution. Okay, and here it is filled till mark A. Okay, now what happens when we keep a funnel which is filled with the sugar solution, we keep this funnel in the beaker which is filled with water, then what happens? The water molecules move from semi-permeable membrane inside the funnel, and what happens? The level of this sugar solution increases and reaches here till B. Here we will mark B. So it will increase. The level of sugar solution will increase due to the entry of water molecule, and this process is known as osmosis, because here water molecules have moved inside the funnel. Now how it happened, as I told you, semi-permeable membrane allowed the movement of only selected molecules. So it allowed the water molecules to move inside the cell, but it does not allow the particles of sugar or sugar molecules to move out of the cell. Clear? So this is the reason that water moves inside the cell or inside the funnel here. Okay, thus this is clear that movement of water from its higher concentration, here there is the higher concentration of water. So thus we can say that water moves from its higher concentration to the region of lower concentration, because inside the funnel water is less. So we can say that movement of water molecules from its higher concentration to the lower concentration, to the region of lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. Okay, this process is known as osmosis. Clear? It was all about the osmosis. Okay. So here we have discussed about the osmosis. So in this lecture we have talked about the transport of materials. That transport of materials take place by the two methods, that is passive transport and active transport. In this lecture we have discussed about the passive transport, means transport of materials does not require the much energy. Okay, and it is generally takes place by two methods, that is diffusion and osmosis. In diffusion, the water molecules move from higher concentration to the lower concentration without semi-permeable membrane. Okay, and here in the osmosis, the water molecules move from higher concentration to the region of lower concentration with the help of semi-permeable membrane, and it is generally done by the two processes, endo osmosis and exosmosis. So it was all about the passive transport. In our next lecture we will talk about the active transport. Thank you.